Governor Roy Cooper's clean energy plan is all about alleviating global warming by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Plug-in electric vehicles, as well as solar power and even wind, those are key components of this plan. So should we expect to see more of all of these during Governor Cooper's second term in office? Don Vaart is the senior fellow looking at energy policy here at the Locke Foundation. He joins us to talk about exactly what is in the governor's energy plans. Don, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Is Roy Cooper's plan, which he calls the Clean Energy Plan, is that essentially a state version of what we hear about from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the Green New Deal?
It is in a lot of respects. It is not a plan that's going to reduce greenhouse gases or alleviate climate change or global warming. However, neither is the Green New Deal. So, there are similarities. One is much at a global sort of level, and Cooper's is kind of a watered-down version.
That's really interesting you would say that, because isn't the mission of the plan to do what you just said it's not going to do?
Well, certainly the ostensible mission is to do that. I'm not even sure the ostensible mission of the Green New Deal is to do that. I think they're much more open about the fact that they're trying to restructure our economic model here in America to make it more of a socialist type model. And if you go all the way to the UN is quite open about that. I think Cooper has a harder time maybe pushing it in that context. And so they're still pretending like it might have some impact on the environment.
Let's talk about some of the key pieces of the governor's plan. One of them is electric vehicles. What does he intend to do, and why is it that is so prominent in his plan?
Well, it may be that there is something he can actually do about that in terms of telling his agencies to direct their expenditures for automobiles along buying electric vehicles instead of regular spark ignition gasoline engines. So he has some control over that. He has no control over what you and I drive. The Green New Deal would allow that, but he doesn't have that kind of authority. The governor in North Carolina is not an extremely powerful position. So it's really more virtue signaling than anything else.
So is he really talking about the state fleet? The fleet of vehicles? Is that what he wants to go all electric?
Sure.
Okay.
He's going to try to, and I would have thought that there's some budgetary constraints, some showings that would have to be made, but with an executive order, I presume it is possible for agencies, when they have to buy more vehicles, that they can go electric in many circumstances. We've talked before, and I've written on the fact that electric vehicles really don't make any sense from the environmental standpoint, at least not now, not while our the marginal additional power needed to power those vehicles would come from fossil fuels. Just to give you an example, China and India both are very interested in electric vehicles, but neither of them have domestic hydrocarbon supplies. They have to import a lot of it. So for them, it makes economic sense to replace gasoline with coal. And that's what they're doing. They're building coal-fired power plants to provide the additional electricity that they need to power your new electric vehicle. And that makes sense from their standpoint. Coal is cheap, and they won't have to spend as many of their dollars importing oil. That's not the case here.
It's an important point, I think, to help people understand that it may sound really great to say, okay, we're going to go all electric with the state fleet, but then the question comes up, how do you charge them up, and where do you do that? Explain that.
Right, and so clearly you can, years ago we had a bit of a fire drill like this. We wanted to go over to natural gas fired transportation vehicles. Now, one of the problems with that is you have to fill your trunk with a tank, because you can't condense natural gas in a motor vehicle. So you had a big tank in your trunk. Your point was, well, wait a minute, where do we fill that up? And so you could have natural gas depots at our state motor pools. But if you had to drive to Asheville, you wouldn't be guaranteed of coming back. And so there was problems there. The same thing's going to happen here. Now, Duke would like possibly being told to build a lot of these charging stations, and they'll be able to make money off of that. But we're not there yet. And so, there's going to be limited range capabilities going forward. And so the agencies will be in the position of having say, yeah, I know you want me to buy an electric vehicle, but I don't know if it makes sense. And so
we don't know if we're going to be stranded down the highway there trying to get back to Raleigh.
Right.
Interesting. You also have talked about recently that Governor Cooper has made a pretty big move when it comes to wind power. Tell us about that.
So just to give you a little background, offshore wind, just when you thought solar was the most expensive energy source, actually offshore wind is even more expensive. And there are no commercial offshore wind plants on the East Coast today. There is a pilot project off the coast of Virginia that they're evaluating, and that's going to generate something like 12 megawatts when they're all at full capacity, which is very rarely the time. So now Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina governors have signed some kind of an agreement that they're going to try to push for offshore wind, and there are problems with that. When they tried to do that off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, folks, landowners there, which I guess wasn't President Obama yet, but other landowners, including the Kennedys, stopped that. They didn't want to have to look at these massive 500-foot windmills off of their pristine coast. Apparently, North Carolina is not so favored. In Cooper's eyes, he's going to see if he can't put some off the shores of Wilmington and off of Nag's Head. Now, they are pushing them out to, at least some are pushing them out to about 27 miles, which is about the viewshed, but that's something to keep a close eye on. The other issue is, this is a news alert, but there are hurricanes on the East Coast, especially on the mid-Atlantic states. Wind farms have a difficult time with hurricanes. And that's one of the reasons we haven't seen the kind of proliferation of offshore wind that you'll see, for example, if you go to my native Holland, where there are a lot of offshore wind farms.
Now, solar power also is a key component of this. Tom, we just have a few moments left here. Give us the overview. Why is North Carolina at the top of the list or near the top when it comes to solar farms and solar power?
Right, and as John Sanders has done a remarkably good job on this. I mean, the short answer is why is North Carolina outpacing all the other states other than California? It's because of our incentives. Our incentives are outpacing all of the other states other than California.
So it's subsidy.
Sure, it makes it's rational behavior. If you can get taxpayers and customers of Duke Electricity to pay for a large fraction of your profit, then why wouldn't you try to develop that? And that's in fact the situation here in North Carolina. There are some limits that the General Assembly have placed on Governor Cooper in this regard. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to broker any kind of sweetheart deals like he did as part of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline.